right at the front of your sheet, I had written out this statement: at its core, marketing is simply sharing who you are and what you do, day in and day out. The sharing isn't limited to simply press releases or announcements, traditional media or new digital media. It's nothing that we really think of as proactive PR efforts. That's just a tiny piece of it. And the other thing I want to emphasize is that the being and the doing isn't limited specifically to what you're being or doing at a Lions Club function. You're a lion, plain and simple. Lions Club. It was interesting reading through some of their branding materials. They really stress lion. Lion is a noun, and it really means a person. Hopefully it's a fierce person fighting for service and for justice in the world. But it's a person. They actually discourage use of words like lionism or things like that, even though that's in their code of ethics. But they say they really want us to think about lions as people and recognize that everything you do, you're doing as a lion. Keep that in mind. A simple thing like wearing your pin is a huge marketing tool. That's what brought me into Lions. I saw a pin that the guy who does the carpentry in our office was wearing, and I asked him about it. I knew that it pertained to lions because when I was little, my dad was a lion, and I was raised thinking lions couldn't be women because that was how his club was. And it wasn't until I pointed out the pin to this guy and said, "What is that?" And he said, "It's a lion's pin." And I was like, "Oh, lions. Oh, I can't be a lion because, you know, I'm a woman." And I sort of thought the discussion was ending. And I realized I was about 20 years behind the history of lions in terms of the fact that lions actually could be women. So really, marketing is everything you're doing. We've been through the Mad Men era. We've been through the era of PR. People don't even use that term anymore. They're actually starting to ditch the term marketing. Several major companies in the last year have fired their marketing directors. And the reason for that is they want it to be all about people. They want it to just be interaction. So they're ditching their marketing directors and hiring people that are like public liaisons and communication advocates and all kinds of different terminology. They haven't really gotten to the next thing, but the whole term of marketing as thinking of it as something separate is really going away. So, which is kind of a scary thought to me, but, and I still have a lot of my, oh, it should be done a certain way attitudes because, you know, that was what I studied and I think I have all these professional skills. But a couple of the things that really struck me early on as I moved into Lions and tried to transfer my skills, I was like, oh, I can help work on our website and I can help do the newsletter. And lo and behold, in my first few months of efforts at that, the funny thing was the website had a block on it then about 2 months into my time because the finance, the payment for it had gone to someone else in the club, and that person had then moved out of the club and we could no longer reach them. So suddenly our site was dead. I was partnering with a person to do the newsletter. That person became very ill, and it just felt like I shouldn't really move forward without her. So I started realizing it can't be just all about me jumping in and doing all of these things. It really has to be a group effort, and you really have to work with people. And it's important to not be scared by the feeling that, you know, things need to be done a certain way. I had a really interesting experience working with some of my media interns this summer. Like I said, I worked for events at Pebble Beach, and we were at one of our events, and working on things, and we were getting ready to post a Facebook, just a little Facebook video. And I was like, oh, that has a typo. And the person said, yeah, I intentionally try to do typos because I want people to think it's like a real thing and that I'm real, and, you know, and that actually is a thing now. So don't feel, I'm not saying go out and try to do typos or to do a less than good job. And obviously my response to her was, we're Pebble Beach, that's not, that's not gonna go over here. But I just don't want you to be scared. Know that marketing, PR, all of it has moved down to such a personal level that it really is whatever you can do. And believe me, that's good enough. That's great, in fact. One of the things Desiree said, you know, you all have your red slippers, and that's absolutely true. So keeping that in mind, though, I want you to know that this really is a community. And even though you're the driving force in terms of whatever you do, it's really important to also pull people in and amplify as much as you can. And that's part of what Desiree was talking about. Figuring out how to amplify your own message, your message as a Lion, your message of your Lions Club. And we have some absolutely great resources. I'm just going to start to walk you through some of these. A lot of these are online. They're really easy to get to. Most clubs, I think, have appointed a marketing communications person. And it would be good for you, if you're not that person, to connect with that person in the club. But there actually is a marketing communications guy. And I think the thing that is most interesting about any resource like this is what you can pull from it in terms of ideas, content, helps, anything to make what you want to do easier. So don't feel like you have to do things necessarily, but it will have a lot of suggestions, and it will talk you through different types of PR. And if nothing else, it's just a spark to help you think about, oh, these are different things I could do. I could post an interview. You know, you could even just interview some of your members. That personalizes what your club is. You can just ask them why they got into Lions. Desiree talked about doing little 30-second video clips. Something like that for a Facebook page is really quick and very personal. It really makes people realize Lions Club isn't just this amorphous global entity. You know, it's great to say we're the biggest, but people are here and they want you to be here with them, and they want to work with you to help things that are here. So as much as you can bring it down to the personal level, the better off you are. One of the things that mentions is post-event publicity, and that was a big part of some of the things that Desiree pointed out. She was really talking about how there's not only the posting of the event, in a way, a lot of your gain comes much more so from the follow-through and the after impact. At Pebble Beach, we, of course, are interested in selling tickets, that sort of thing. And the same would be true for Lions Club. You want people to come to your fundraisers. But where I see the most gain in terms of interest is in the photos after the event. A lot of what we're doing here as Lions are events. And event photography, event marketing, event publicity is 70% about the post event, what you make of it. So really keep a focus on that. Anyway, you might just look through here. It talks about doing PSAs. That may be a little more than anyone, you know, wants to get into. It may scare you, the thought of working with public access television. You'd be surprised at how easy it can be, though. It talks you through website, social media. So these are just some general ideas. It even tells you a little bit about how to get your event into the Lions magazine. One of the things that really changed my thinking as a Lion was reading an article in the Lions magazine about this club in Southern California. I wish I could remember the name of the club, and perhaps someone here will know. But it was quite possibly. They had started as a club where a few people just decided to do cleanup. And because they were really addressing something in their community, it built into this massive wave. And it seemed like the club was really well balanced in terms of the number of youth that were involved. And I think one of the things that it really pointed out to me was how it really is just important. You know, we talk about working with others. What in your community most needs doing? What do the people that are around you most want to do? Those are some of the first questions you should be asking when you're thinking about what is your goal. One of the things we were first talking about is, you know, defining your brand, but also setting your goal and really finding the needs. So that's important. And it was just amazing to me reading that article, how things built from there and built into a really viable club. I'm going to pass through the social tips for just a moment. I want to walk you through a couple of the other items in here. Desiree mentioned the fact sheet. Everything you need to know about Lions is, of course, online. I almost felt like going through the website. When you just go into My Lion and you hit, you can go into the resource center. You can search for almost anything. And depending on how I would word the search, I could get 50 different documents related to marketing. Some aren't dated, so you have no idea what's old and what's new. But there's so many resources there that talk about Lions, but there are all sorts of things that can really spur you on. I've included the sheet of sample press releases because there actually is a list and links to sample press releases for a whole myriad of things: recruiting new members, announcing a new Lions Club, doing a club project, doing a fundraiser, announcing a scholarship, doing a milestone anniversary, announcing your officers. So there are lots of these, and it's just basically a fill in the blank form. It's an easy thing to be able to have. If you're scared of writing, it's a great resource. You can just pull it down and mail it out.
And what kind of outlets would you recommend we go after?
One of the first things I did, because I had been working at Pebble Beach, I knew a lot of my local media. But one of the first things I did as a Lion when I was trying to promote our new event was I went back through every list I knew in terms of newspapers, and I looked up who was the current lead, what were the guidelines, because in my job at Pebble Beach, I would pick up the phone and call. But as a Lion, I maybe don't have that personal connection already. And I needed to find out, where do I have to fill in an online form? There are a lot of newspapers now that won't take a press release anymore. You actually have to fill in their little calendar form. There are some that will take a press release. They may have a word limit. So the first thing I did as sort of, you know, the person labeled the marketing person for my club was I went through and I listed as many resources as I could and just got my head around, what do I need to do whom, because there really are specific guidelines now for almost every publication, every broadcast, every radio or television show. And so many of them have, multi-dimensions. They have their own Facebook pages, their own Twitter feeds. They have all of that. And the more that you can drive into their network, they're all set up. They're reaching your community already. So that's a great way to go. It's just that you have to figure out what is the method for each of those organizations. So, but press releases are still useful, and if nothing else, it gets your own head around what you need to say, what are sort of the key facts for each news item that you want to present. In terms of brand guidelines, that is sort of next on my list. If you went into the main resource center and you search for brand guidelines, you get a booklet that has a lot of things in it that may scare you. But it may also be things, I would take a quick glance through, know what's in there, and realize it can either help you creatively, it can help you with backup information. It includes the mission statement, the vision and org statements for the Lions, all three of which are different. Actually, one's a compilation of the others. It has the boilerplate, which at the bottom, you may not know this, but at the bottom of any press release, the last line is called, the last paragraph is called the boilerplate. That's always your sort of basic org info. So in this case, it says Lions Club International is the world's largest service organization with, and it continues. I would always pair it with a lead-in paragraph about what my local club is, so that they know that, especially locally. Again, as much as you can bring it from the larger level into the local level, the better off you are. It includes preferred usage. Like I was talking about the term lions versus lionism. That's something I learned by reading the brand guideline. And I didn't know that until I read it last week at some point. And I said, oh, interesting. It has, so there's even a formula, like you would say Lions Club International on first reference, then you would say Lions International on second, and after that you would talk about the organization. In PR, we care about stuff like that. Know that your local group is not, your local news organizations are not going to be worried about your usage. And I really don't think Lions Club itself is that worried about it either. It's just suggestions. It just sort of helps you think things through. It gives you guidelines regarding the logo. It gives you our colors. If you were working with a designer, say you're designing a flag, they're like, what color is this purple? You can look it up there and say, it happens to be Pantone number, blah, blah, blah. So designers like that sort of thing. It has your preferred fonts, of which I would dutifully put this in one of the preferred fonts. So brand guidelines, again, don't be scared by them. Keep in mind those youngsters that are introducing typos. Know whatever you do, if you do it your best, it'll be great. Okay, it also has logos to download, a variety of things. I wanted to next talk just briefly about the My Lions site that we talked a little bit about that has the reporting functions. I know there's a lot of angst and call for angst, and there's a lot of room for improvement. We don't have to have that discussion here, but I do think that they were trying to do certain things. You notice they have a new activity and then they have a report activity. And I think they're just really trying to get us in the pattern of doing things ahead of time and then going back and doing the follow-up. And so, you know, despite some of the angst, there's some good thinking behind it. They're trying to be forward-facing in terms of how these events show up. As we mentioned, they're trying to build up a part. You can see on the Carmel Mission Trail Lions Club, those scales of justice people are already on our page.
I don't know who they are.
I wouldn't know. So, you know, they actually have gone ahead and started to use that tool where you actually can send it out to everyone in your club and everyone in the next club and everyone in the district and everyone in the world.
So that does work sometimes?
It does work sometimes. I've managed it once. I have to say right now, my entrance on the site is about maybe 40% of the time I can get in when I'm trying to go to do something. But
one of the things you don't see is the message that
They disabled that. They disabled that feature. If you go to My Lions forum on Facebook, I'm sorry, Candace,
no, that's right.
there's a whole talk group, and they actually went in and actually disabled some stuff because I think it was what was making it crash. So they're disabling those and they're reworking it. Like they went and now added a meeting that you can enter past tense. Like if you have a meeting on Monday, on Wednesday, you can now go report that activity. Because they've been really taking a lot of the international complaints that we've all been pounding our heads against the wall and saying, we've got to fix this. So that's why there's been an update.
Okay, so it's definitely not working now, and they're fixing it, because I'd like to see what the messages they're gonna send out.
Right.
It's a work in progress, I guess you can say. So they've actually had to backtrack what the original envision is. Let's get the reporting in first, and then let's see if we can start turning on some more of these features later as we grow.
And I can honestly say that I was in USA Cancer Forum, and I went to a My Lion seminar, and there was a few people there that they sent from, were you there on that one too, Stan? They sent from Lions International, and let me tell you, that room was full, and they blasted those people and said, why did you not bring someone in that was a lion to do this? And they know their problems. I mean, people were very specific about, look, this is the problem. So they're very, very well aware of the problem on that thing.
There's a lot of ways that it limits you in terms of what you can report. I have had repeated problems trying to do past things. So, but just know that was probably some of the thinking behind it. And in terms of moving forward, hopefully we'll be moving in a positive direction. But there was a reason for some of that, I'm sure. And it's modeling and mirroring the way the world is going in terms of how we do things. My hope would be ultimately some of these club things we could connect with newspapers and things like that, so that it becomes not just a very insular lion tool. One of the first things we said, in fact, the very first thing written on the paper was the fact that too often we're just promoting lions to lions. So hopefully this begins to break out, you know, to the world. But in the meantime, that is still a tool that you have. And I wanted you to look at the back page too, because there are metrics that are built into this. Now, I'm not using them yet because I can't get half of my events in there, so I know my metrics are too low. But down the road, this could be a hugely useful tool. You will always have at hand how many people you served, how many volunteer hours your club did, that sort of thing. And, you know, that's cool for the international Lions, but it's really more cool. You can't get your head around the big numbers. 1.36 million people. I don't have, you know, I can't envision that. In fact, they tell us that our minds can really only think in terms of a whole one. And it's better to say, you know, you've helped 1/6 or 1/6 of a group of Boy Scouts. Think of it as always translating into one. You know, you've have a hungry community of 200. If that 200 is one and you help 60, that's great. Then you helped, 40%. So in PR, we're taught now to always think only in terms of one and to say how much of that one you're helping. It helps people visualize it much better. Okay, jumping in, and on the back, it also has even more metrics for, the number of people being served in terms of diabetes, environment, childhood cancer, et cetera. So there are even more breakdowns. So down the road, have positive thoughts about that international website, because I think down the road, it could be a great help to us.
Yeah, I don't know about anybody else, but half the things I'm putting on there going to other,
Yeah,
because they're just not,
right,
they're not part of the mission, but they're things that we do all the time.
right. And a lot of their main imagery, like I have trash cans all over my permission trail because everything seems to go in that. Now you can change the photos, but the site has been so sticky lately that I'm just trying to get things up and not mess them. But you can, like Skills of Justice showed, you can do photos on that website, and it's not really too tough. You can just kind of drag them over and get them up there. Okay. Social, I'm jumping back now to the front page of that first list that I gave you. And if you go to the social media tips,
Where are we at?
on the very front page, if you go into the social media tips link, I'm right here. There are lots of tools under here to actually help you with a variety of social things. When you drill down into it, most of them really pertain to Facebook, even though technically Lions are involved in, I think, 11 different platforms I counted. So they actually do have Snap and all of those things that I know you're so eager to get involved in, Alan. So, but they don't usually give you as many pointers for that. They're sticking close to Facebook for the most part. But under the social media tips, I love the fact that it starts out with how to entice older Lions to participate in social media. So it actually has a little video to inspire you. But then it goes into social media guidelines. I actually printed those out for you so you can see some of those. And in terms of the content, I just love some of the reminders that it gives you. It reminds me of reminders that Liz Crook would give when she's talking about how to deal with people, stay focused on the positive, don't jump in if someone says something negative, So there are little helps like that that really talk about behaviors that pertain not only to social. Social really is just your basic coffee club meeting place. So it's just sort of reminders of how to interact with people. It includes a social media checklist. I just printed that out as something that you might want to look through and see. It sort of talks about how to first know your channel. We talked about what is our own community. Start with yourself, move to your friends and family. Think about which mediums you're going to be using to reach them, and then it talks about showing your story, the use of photos, videos, Lions Club member news, various links, live tweets from events, and then it talks about different ways to grow your network. We talked a lot about how to grow, liking, really trying to interact, getting people to do social themselves. There are blogs. There are a lot of how-tos, how to use hashtags. It's funny, first, there were all these seeming rules, like hashtags are only for this platform, not for that platform. Hashtags, then it became, oh, everything is about a hashtag. Now we've kind of realized hashtags are your best possible aggregators. So you may do a post about the Almaden dinner, and you do the post, but sometimes if you add certain hashtags, I sort of look around to see what are the popular hashtags that people are using in my area, because if you start going and adding those hashtags to your post, other people that are looking under those hashtags, you know, may see your stuff. So
I'm sorry, I apologize for sounding stupid, but how do those hashtags, I mean, we all see them, right?
yeah,
But how do they even work? I don't even understand.
they work as an aggregator. So then you can go back and search under a hashtag, and it will help you, you know, you'll see everything coming up under that.
They're also used by lots of different applications to do searches, to do web searches. So I used to, when I had my business, I used to use this online magazine, which is called paper.li, I don't know if you're familiar with it. And so basically, I would publish a newspaper for my business every day. And all I did was I picked like 2 or 3 subject hashtags, like it was one was hashtag mobile advertising. So it would pull all the mobile advertising articles and publish them as a newspaper for me every single day. And I didn't have to do anything, go through Twitter and find out hashtag mobile advertising.
Yeah, so he would get all of those coming up when he looked for hashtag, whatever it
Mobile
was.
advertising.
Yeah, and then he just built it into his own newsletter.
So you go into Google and put,
Yeah,
But I didn't
Or
even
like,
have to do
we
it.
could do the convention, say Santa Maria, we could put Santa Maria hashtag Santa Maria Convention or C6 or something, and then I go take pictures and I put that same verbiage in there, it all kind of connects together as one big,
it helps you
Cobweb.
make the connection. Yeah,
Putting it in the post is
Yep.
part of
Yeah.
putting it in.
yeah.
How did you discover which hashtags are the ones in your community? I'm not sure how to do
I look them up and see what I'm getting under those. You
that.
can,
Where do you look them up?
I just start Googling them.
Mhm.
There are ways, if you have back end, I don't want to suggest something that you don't have. I have other ways to do it, through various platforms that actually will show me the top I'll say auto, and it will show me the top aggregators under that, or cars. Or, you know, so I know car goals is one of the top. So I put that at the bottom of my post. I often put it, we have a new thing that we're trying at Pebble where we're putting the hashtags. You know, you want to keep your posts as short as possible because people are very visual. So for a while, we weren't adding hashtags. We stopped using them. Now we're adding them back, but we're doing like 4 carriage returns. So it sort of forces them off the page of what people see. It still aggregates under those. It's just that you don't see them in the post. You only see the first 6 lines or whatever of the post. And I usually try to keep my text for the post that short or shorter, so that nothing goes off the page. If you have things going off the page, you're losing people. So, so those are just, you know, we could talk about, we should probably do 50 Facebook tips, because I have the feeling
Yeah.
that's what so many of us are using. But yeah, we'll just do it at the end of our post.
I just opened Facebook, and I mean, this is the first time I've tried it. Hashtag Campbell Oktoberfest came up. We're working today and tomorrow. West San Jose Campbell Lions Club came up. Campbell Soup. Okay. Yeah, so that's,
Pick
I
the
don't know
one you
how to
want.
okay, so you go into Facebook versus Google.
Yeah, and just put
Yeah.
hashtag, and then
You
you
can
can
do
put in
either.
like San Martin, and anything San Martin related could
Will come up.
potentially come
Cool,
up.
cool, cool, okay. And some platforms will limit you. I think if I'm on YouTube, I can put in like 30. But if I'm on, well, like Hootsuite definitely has a limit if you're using that to upload or send out or Sched or some of the other schedulers that are new. But it's a silly little way to actually make your post go much further.
Wow, that's a great.
So, all right. So use of hashtags. So that's in there. You can look some, I haven't read that one, so I don't know what they're telling you or how old it is, but do know that there's a use of hashtags thing under that social media. There's how to set up a Facebook page. I don't know if that addresses specifically how to set up a Facebook event. Desiree really talked about how valuable that is. We use that for our club meeting in addition to any of our club events. But that's a very positive thing in making use of Facebook events in general. Let's see here. The next item on the list, social media, Facebook basics, is a tome. So I didn't print it out for you. I think it's like 40 something pages, but it really has, you know, getting started. It will give you a picture of every single thing you do step by step. So it's something that makes that very easy. In a way, it's sort of the professionals person, you know, has created a resource already for our Lions clubs. So someone on that level has done it. I would still add in the college or the high schooler or the middle-aged student, middle grade student, just because they always know more than everybody else. So even those of us that have been doing marketing for a really long time. And then I just wanted to remind you, just constantly look at the other Lions Club pages, whether it be our beautiful district site. This is a website. We also have, you know, that includes the calendar, so you can find a quick link on it. So Judy's posts twice a month are really invaluable. It includes, there's the Facebook page for us as well. And just looking at that, you can always share things from this page, like them, because that helps all of our other clubs. It just gives you a sense too of how, you know, posts are looking, when to use links, when not to use links, how to post videos. Some ways are better than others, but just the biggest way you'll learn is just by watching what others are doing and seeing, you know, whether things feed in as a live video or not. You'll get used to it. The more you're on social, the better off you'll be at social. Lions Club International has its site. We talked about how that's a little, you know, removed from a lot of us, but it's still important. It still gives you a lot of sense of where our local efforts can build to and make a huge world of difference. So I just love that term. And we are, even on our level, making a world of difference. So I've included in here the Instagram for those of you that are maybe not as concerned. The great thing about Instagram is it's very visual. So once you start taking photos, you can just become snap happy. You don't even have to think of what words am I going to say. You can post, you know, and so getting a visual page going is something that can really attract some of the younger people you may be seeking. They're much more likely to be on Instagram than they are to be on Facebook. So I just didn't want to leave that out. I think that's something we need to be looking at. Yeah, Tomas.
And I'm looking here at the web page, and it says that there are 713 posts.
Yeah, that's sad.
Is that an information overload? how do we, deal with so much information?
Well, they may have just uploaded one at a time, but this is really a low number. For Lions Club, that's kind of sad.
What's that, the number of hours?
No, 713 posts. That's
So-
how many the International Lions Club has posted on Instagram.
Oh,
So now you think of that as overload, but say I'm just following it. It just pops up on my phone. I look at it, it's gone in less than a second. I'm just going through like this, looking at the different feeds. But, it's triggering in my mind. Lions Club is doing something. Lions Club is doing something. Lions Club is doing something. So, every time Alan writes a post, I don't necessarily, I should like it more, I'm sorry. I'm usually going so fast that I'm just trying to get through, because I have about an hour and a half to 2 hours of social that I have to get through at work every day. And then I have to do our own social and interact on that page and follow. So for the rest of it, I'm kind of going fast. But kids are going fast. I'm 50 something, 59, almost 60. When I watch my niece and nephew, they're, much faster than I am, and they're taking it in. That's just how things are going into the brain. So I know that may be overwhelming for many people, many of the people that we think of as our core people. But if we're thinking about any community that we're in, Carmel is an old community, but I shouldn't say that. Sorry, Carmel. But I still have to reach younger people. We all need new, we talked about, Desiree mentioned not only fresh bodies, but she really talked about fresh talent, fresh insights, and that's really important. On the plus side, Carmel has started to come up in the world. We've had a couple hit TV shows, and we're starting to be the hot entity again. So anyway, there, I have to do my little plus for Carmel. Okay, and then the last thing I put on here is YouTube. YouTube is kind of a medium that we don't tend to talk as much about. The people that are on YouTube are really devoted to it. You can do really great things in terms of uploading videos. And the other thing I want you to remember is all of these sites, even though they're national or district or California, those are things that you can maybe share. And in sharing them, you can also say, hey, we're doing a local, vision testing day. And we're inviting our community. This is part of a worldwide Lions effort. We encourage you to come right down here to whatever. And that saves you having to think about, then you'll want to follow up with your own local photos and do the thank yous. But it really helps you you can share and you have that photo, that video all ready to use. There's a new statistic that, well, it's not new, but you probably get as much as 40 times the views of a video as opposed to a photo. Up to that much. That's a lot. That means my whole world has changed over the last 2 years. My whole budget I've reallocated because I have to be thinking in terms of video. Even if it's a video short, it just can be like this. But that play, even a 2-second loop, will get more eyes on it than a photo. Yeah.
Where do you post your video? You're talking Facebook,
Facebook, yeah.
Instagram, and
Yeah.
so like this has been recorded. It's through YouTube. So we'll throw the YouTube link out there and then we'll put that YouTube link back out on Facebook.
okay, and put it on.
Then we'll do it tomorrow in the section too. So this is being recorded through YouTube actually today.
Candace, are we getting a soft copy of this? It's gonna be on.
You're getting, Ellen's gonna,
I can PDF what she gave me and I will put the link in tomorrow's email.
Okay.
I think I'll do a separate whole block of today's training resource center type thing. And put the video links here, and it's gonna go out to the 800 members that goes out to twice a month.
I'm wondering if we shouldn't send it out to, even to, the block I have for president secretaries, because we've got so much,
It goes out to the same group of people.
right, not the reason.
Yes, they are.
All the presidents?
Yes, they are.
Okay, excellent.
Because I pulled that data out of my LCI and uploaded it into constant contact. So the 800 email or 777 email addresses that we have in my LCI is all getting that newsletter.
So that way you'll have the live links, so you don't have to try to type out this.
Right. Candace,
Yeah.
you think that a video of the lion eating a zebra would help?
A zebra?
Well, lion, you know, eating a zebra in the video, that would be helpful. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
How have they been doing this new cooking little demonstrations all the time? They do these little, less than 2-minute little cooking things. You add this, you add that, you add that, and it's a cooking
Yeah,
demo.
They hooked me in because it looks so good. I have to watch it.
I know. You want to make those cinnamon buns or whatever it is. Yeah. So, and they're, sure. Instagram, it's best to stay under a minute, which is a really long time in social world, but not long enough for me. In some of the things that I'm doing, you know, if I'm interviewing somebody about a certain car. So in terms of Facebook, you can go longer. There are really divergent statistics. Sometimes they say that in terms of Facebook, the shorter the better. And that's what most people say, but there was this study that came out that actually said a 3-minute video over time can have a better life. So I don't know what to believe in terms of that.
Do you have a target time for like for your ones at work?
My target time is just over 60 seconds on Facebook. If I can hit around 90 seconds, I'm good. If I go, and this is probably just dependent on your audience, you know, you kind of have to experiment. I do enough that I know that if I'm between about 80 seconds and about 95, that's when I'm going to be the best off. That just may be me, you know, in terms of, I have a very specific chunk of the car world. And I don't know a lion's equivalent of that. So other things that we've talked about, there was a passing mention of, you know, the photo releases. Actually, you can find those. Those are part of one of the links that we have here. I think it's under the, it may be under the brand guidelines, or it may be under, I don't think it's under brand guidelines. Let's see here. I don't have to go through and click all of these again. But one of them actually does have releases both for an adult and for a child. So if you want to just print out a few of those, have handy, at least then you have a template. You don't have to think of what should the language be. But that's right on one of those links. And I have found that people are still somewhat sensitive about it. I know just from when I call about Concord photos to parents, there's, especially when you state it and when they have a moment to think about it, they're a little more leery than, you know, maybe keep my kid's name out and put, or can you hide their face somehow? But if you have those handy, at least, and some people will be very willing to help you. So, okay.
And just so you know too, is as California Lanes, we do have, and it's getting more tread, is we have what's called the child protection policy for when we're doing engaged with Leos or we're doing engaged with any of our youth program about that. And then we did talk about that photo piece will be in there, and most of it is, and there's different levels of being around children, whether it's a one-on-one because we're in a camp setting, or if we're doing the student speaker contest and everybody's here, and that's considered social contact versus a direct contact. But there is a whole policy that for the California Lions. We're actually should be getting more information next week when we come back out of the Council of Governors. Because what, not just a little bit more about that, if we are like in the Leo program or you're doing camps, then you're also going to be required to do a live scan through a third-party agency, so to make sure that we don't have the wrong lion or wrong person with a juvenile.
But by the way, on the subject of branding, one of the things that came up in the USA Canada, it's headed up. The guy at conference is the head legal guy, I think, for the Lions Club. And he said that any printer or somebody who makes shirts like this, they can apply for a license to print a lion, make lions and stuff. They just got to get a license. So, this obviously wasn't made by Lions Club store.
And the Lions, information does say that Lions have permission. Any member has permission to use. When you read through the guidelines, you'll see that.
There are actually really interesting new guidelines regarding apparel.
Yeah.
And if you are going out and getting things for your club, you know, at a small, you can use the old logo. The one with the red tongue is actually legal to use it only on apparel. But, you know, they've changed. You gotta keep up with this stuff because it changes all the time.
Yeah.
So if you think you're doing something for your club, be sure you check the branding guidelines before you do it, because it may have changed from the last time you looked.
And there's actually a whole workbook on branding, what logos you can use. You can go there, and the logos are in different file formats depending on what you're using. If it's for web platform, if it's you want to send it to the printers and TIFF and JPEG and all those.
Yeah, the only thing that I wish the branding guidelines did have, doesn't appear to have, is appropriate uses for when it is appropriate to use the Lions logo on online or maybe a personal post or whatever. You know, some of those.
And when you should use it with the wording.
Right,
I
yeah, it does not go into that yet. I would like to see them, you know, go into a deeper level. I think, you know, sometimes we need a little more hand holding on things, but as far as file formats and the high level branding, you know, they do it with guidelines, which is very clear.
Good. Okay. So are there questions?
Yeah, I don't have a question, I have a comment. There is a Facebook page, My Lions Forum. We should all be on it. Because not only does it does talk about reporting to My Lion, are people having problems, but they have a lot of helpful information. What do you do about, or, you know, they have a lot of, they make their posts on that all day long.
With the support lines?
What is it,
My Lions Forum, and there'll be I think an R up in the upper right-hand corner of that verbiage.
And that's a Facebook?
It's on Facebook.
Facebook page.
It's a Facebook chat group.
Okay.
And if you're having issues with logging on to My Lion, or you see something, you can actually put in there, and LCI actually monitors it, and actually sometimes more of your remedy tickets get fixed through that group than trying to call LCI.
But
They're
it also
actually
has
pretty
other
prompt.
information in it.
Tips, tricks, and techniques that other members have found playing around in the platform.
Yeah, it's really helpful.
There's just-
There are a couple very good Lions forums
Mhm.
online, on Facebook. Some of them are geared towards leadership and questions on for leadership type issues. Others are things like online, so others are, they're targeted.
Right.
So look around, and you might find,
Find like my page, go to mine and you'll start seeing some of those, or Linda's, because we're linked to them, or even Janine, is it Richardson?
yeah, global.
Yeah, he's a global, and he'll just throw out a spontaneous question.
And for discussion. And it's a little, sometimes it's a little bit of a bomb, they'll just kind of put it out there and you go, whoa.
But it opens that question or thought, it's like, oh, okay, we've thought about it, but we really don't want to ask that question, but he throws it on the table.
Yeah, there's some people,
Or-
so you get people from pretty much all over the country.
Right.
And our district does it this way, or my club does it this way, or yes, I've seen this kind of issue, or a good way of countering that problem is this. And so it's very mind-provoking.
Yeah.
It's a good
Interesting.
way.
That was which?
I think it's Stephen Richardson,
Yeah, it's
B or
global,
PH?
it's-
Global Leadership or something, I can look it
Yeah,
up.
it's global lines.
Global line?
Yeah. It's-
And I think one topic one time is when you start your meeting, do you start with the pledge, the invocation, and the song? In what order do you do those three?
Local Lions Forum. Also, just put out things on their own. Someone posted just on Thursday, when I joined Lions, I was taught that the key policies had on Lions. This policy changed. I said that too, like, okay.
And that's an interesting topic, and I think we have to really look at that when we're on Facebook and we're really projecting Lions. Yeah, and I manage both of the district, and I have probably, my picture has the Lions logo. I really refrain from any political posts, NRAs about gun posts, or any of that things. Yes, you might find out later what my thing is, but I don't put it out on the world. And we have to keep those, I think, at a really good, close balance.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a couple Lions, statewide or international, that really, they get out there and they start bashing different political views, and I don't think that's what we are, because we're non-political.
Here's another one. What is the parliamentary procedure for quieting or potentially removing a person making inappropriate comments in meeting?
Wow.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, they're really good ones. So, I would suggest that, if you're interested in looking at some of these topics that are sometimes sensitive or,
Yeah.
clumsy topic, what I call clumsy topic, you can follow the Global Lions Forum and get some, feedback from a lot of our Lions leaders, a lot of PGs and IDs follow this, and just people from a club that have some input.
Here's one, can anyone work individual as a Lion member, but not with the club, I mean, I just logged on and asked if I could join.
Yeah, I'm doing that too.
It's pretty cool. I'm glad you said something. Here's one small club looking for manageable fun projects and new members. Adopt a child, classroom, school, or library. I mean, they're asking for help.
One of the things that occurred to me, we have some of the new cyber clubs, and those might be clubs that we could partner with, for some of the expertise that we need. So
What is this? Cyber?
we have cyber clubs.
A couple of
Where
them.
they're online.
For information security training?
No, they're
No.
really online clubs.
Oh, okay.
They meet online.
Right.
And obviously their membership are, involves a large amount of people that are
Right.
mobile, exactly. So,
We actually have two of them. There's two in our
Two
district.
now there.
We have two in the,
I knew of one.
into the district, a lot of the other districts have them, we actually have one that's an international, online class, or online cyber club. And the whole meaning behind that is, if, when we first thought, a lot of us thought about it, it's like, I live in King City, but I want to be attached to something up here. I can't travel all the time to come up here to this area, but I'm still connected. And that was the whole platform, but now it's really kind of growing and taking off. LCI is putting out a few guidelines where they want, it was once a year is an annual meeting, you have to come together, and some other little few things. There was a class at USA Canada Forum on that.
How do we find that? How do I join or find it?
Probably look online and see, we got the Roaring Mustangs,
And the scholar.
the Scholars. I haven't seen their Facebook feed lately, so I'll,
I can tell you who their presidents are. Email me and I'll tell you who their presidents.
There's a platform called Voice that I might use. I'll let you know.
yeah, and that's the other thing that we're working on. Like right now, we're using Zoom,
Yeah.
is what Lynn and I are very familiar with. And we have GoToMeeting. I mean, there's so many different platforms out there that people use.
Don't hesitate to make use of people like Alan
Yeah.
And Linda.
and Linda. You know, and there are a lot of other people too. We know somebody, there are several other schedulers. I know Sked, I know Sweet In Depth, I know a few of the others. You're working on newsletters, you know, Constant Contact, MailChimp, Broadly, whatever you're working on. Likely one of us has worked on it, and is very familiar with it. So don't hesitate to, you know, it almost seems like we need help with this.
We can do another one. Usually about once a year, Linda and I'll come in and we'll go through, spend 3 or 4 hours on all the different things from Eventbrite to
That's great.
Facebook and all these other, what was it called, Brown Bag or Brown Ticket, where you can sell tickets
Yes,
and events. There's so many different platforms out there. And one of the things I'm a kind of a proponent of is we need to find one that we like and stick with it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people bounce around and then all of a sudden I got this app for Zoom and I got to get this app for GoToMeeting, I got this app for this, and then it gets a little overwhelming. And especially with some of our generation, we need one to stick with it and how to use that well.
And Zoom is very, very well respected, and, you know, it's growing quite fast. But, I know you're doing Zoom for this entire session, but, you know, I heard that the free events were only 40 minutes long, and after that you need a subscription.
60. I think it's up to 60 minutes. You can do that and you can do unlimited one-on-one. So if like Linda and I need to do a conference call or whatever, we can undo unlimited. I think it's called.
Free is a big, you know, selling point.
But most of these platforms like Buffer and this Hootsuite, they have, I think, 3 or 4, you can have 3 or 4 people use it for free. And they start charging if you know, you're a big organization.
Yeah.
So.
Though some like Facebook are pretty blessedly open. I mean, I can allow a whole lot of people from my club to post.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Anything else?
Candace, thank you.
Oh,
Yes, thank you, Candace.
Feel free to just call me if you need anything else in terms of resources or you're trying to find something. I did spend several evenings on the Lions website looking for certain things that I may have.
Yeah, no, but he said it's a big.
Yes, what's your last name?
I'm going to send H-A-W-K, bird, and then I-N-S-O-N.
Hey, Alan.
Yes, Linda.
I just wanted to thank everybody. This was recorded and it looked really great. And whoops, looks like a delay on my. Hold on. I just wanted to.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.